guys, it's James here. Just filling up at the spring that I've been coming to get my water up in Tahoe here. This is called Boca Springs. Pine forest pretty much. It's a campground also. It's snowing right now, so it's kind of cool, but I just wanted to say a little bit about the pine tree. Now, usually I just been making videos and blogs and whatnot on spring water, but I want to talk today a little bit about the pine tree and the medicinal benefits of consuming different parts of the pine tree. Alright, so today I just want to talk a little bit about the pine tree and the medicinal benefits of it. This is a pine tree here. It's one of my favorite plants on this whole planet. There's 5 major things actually. There's quite a lot of medicine from the pine tree. One is the inner bark, 2 are the needles, the 3rd is the pine pollen, 4th is the pine sap, or the pine pitch it's also called, and then 5th are the pine nuts. First off, the pine bark is medicinal because it contains antioxidants, and those antioxidants are called OPCs, or oligomeric proanthocyanidins. That's quite a word. But basically what they do is they protect your cells from free radical damage, and they also protect your DNA from environmental mutagens. So that means that things that are in the environment that can mutate and harm your DNA, it basically protects your DNA from that and holds the integrity of it. So that's a pretty monumental thing actually to be bringing into your body at this time, because there's so many things that affect our genes in the environment nowadays. So the medicine is not on the outside. The outside is kind of the dead layer, but if you go in a little bit, it's a reddish, whitish kind of material, and that's the medicine. So we're just going to harvest a little bit today, and it's very important that you harvest from top to bottom lengthwise, because the fluids that flow in the tree go top to bottom or bottom to top. And if we cut this way, we'd be cutting off a lot more of the medicine that's flowing in the tree for itself. So it's important that we cut lengthwise. So I'm just going to make a little incision today. And here, why don't you get a little closer? So as you can see, digging in kind of far, you make sure you get past the outer bark layer and you get to the inner bark, which is this right here. And that's this. It's important to break this up when you are going to make a tea out of it, and what we want to do is make a decoction. So we want to bring some water to a boil, throw this in, maybe boil it for 5 or 10 minutes, and then turn off the water, turn off the heat, and just let it steep for a little while. And that'll turn your water a reddish brownish color, and that's a very good medicine to be bringing into your body. Okay, so we talked about the inner pine bark. The second part I want to talk to you about are the needles, and that is right here. Pine needles are very rich in vitamin C, and a lot of the food in our system today that's been known to have vitamin C, like oranges, have actually been shown to contain a lot lower levels of vitamin C than we previously thought. So it's important to just know how to get vitamin C into our system. And granted, a lot of our foods do have vitamin C, so it's not usually a problem, but it's also a nice tasting tea, and it complements the inner pine bark. So if you mix them both together, they kind of work synergistically. But I wanted to say one thing that is very important. Some pine needles are different than others, so it's important to not boil the pine needles, just steep them in hot water for 10 or 15 minutes, because you'll degrade all the vitamin C that's in the pine needles, but also 2, in the ponderosa pine, which is very prevalent up in the Sierra Nevadas where I am, it actually contains turpentine. So if you boil it, that turpentine will come out, and the pine needles are known to cause abortion in the fetus of young calves. So cows would eat these pine needles and they would abort their babies. So it's important that we use this medicine properly. It takes some education, and I definitely encourage you to look at what kind of pines are in your area and understand how to use that medicine, because it's very important that we do this in the right way. So all we'd have to do is grab a few pine needles. It really doesn't take that much for a tea. Maybe break them up a little bit, and then boil some water, bring it down to a cooler temperature, and then throw the needles in and let them steep for 10 or 15 minutes. So that's the pine needle. Okay, so we talked about the inner bark, the needles, and I want to talk about the sap now. That's this right here. A pine tree will bleed some sap, or pitch it's called, when a branch falls off or it gets a wound, and it basically produces the sap to protect itself from ants, bugs, infection, whatever can harm the tree. And we can actually use this for our bodies by making a salve out of it. So we'd infuse some olive oil or coconut oil with the pine sap over the course of a couple weeks, and then we would strain that out and put in some beeswax, melt in some beeswax to make it more solid. And this is a good medicine because it's an antibiotic, antibacterial. So if you get, some kind of a wound or something, you could put it on there and it would protect it. But traditionally it was also used to remove splinters. So you can make a salve and then put it on a splinter you have, and it'll pull the splinter out after a couple days or so. And that's a really beneficial thing to know as well. So that's the sap of the pine tree, or the pitch. Okay, so we've talked about 3 different parts of the pine tree that we use as medicine, and there's 2 more things that are seasonal: the pine pollen and pine nuts. The pollen comes out in the spring, usually early June around this area, and that can be gathered in different ways. There's a lot of research out there on the internet. I suggest that you go look into how to gather pollen and whatnot. I'd show you, but it's just not the season here right now. And then in September or October, in the fall time, the nuts will come out. So pine trees will put out a pine cone that's closed, and you can grab that pine cone and then let it sit for a couple days, and it'll open up a little bit, and the nuts will be in there. And those are a really rich source of fat and calories. So they're really good wild food to know as well. So we talked about 5 different things of the pine tree, and it's a good tree to get to know. And there's pines all over, so kind of seek out pines in your area and learn about them a little bit. But yeah, thank you guys for listening.